Hi, my name's John Fisk. I'm our Midwest Container Production Manager for Bailey Nurseries. And today I'm here to talk to you guys about our Jumpstart line and how we use it in our container production. It's really been a good thing for us. We've started this quite a few years ago now, and many of our grower partners are really latching on to this same concept. The program is really growing for us. Oftentimes though, we do still get a lot of questions on how we're using this to benefit us in our own production. And so basically I'm here today to answer some of those questions you may have and just explain to you what we do here in the Midwest at both of our Minnesota and our Illinois growing facilities. In front of me right now is some of our macrophylla production. It's a very large line item for us in the nursery, as many of you are probably very well aware. What you see here in front of us is basically our Jumpstart line of our macrophylla hydrangea. And many of you guys are very familiar with this. What I'm holding in front of me is actually a direct stick cutting stuck into this tray May 15th of this year. And currently we're filming here at the end of July. So we're off to a pretty good start. We've got some plants that have a couple good breaks and some rooting. And then these plants will also probably get another cut yet this year before they go into their dormancy here in Minnesota. In the container world, we basically do 3 separate plantings of this line item. All 3 of those plantings are done using a Jumpstart liner. Our first planting will typically happen when the plants are just coming out of dormancy here in the Midwest, which for us is really that late April, early May timeframe. We'll do 1 round of planting into our 2-gallon containers. And then in addition to that, we'll do another round of planting in June, which will be a green Jumpstart coming from this facility, and then another round in July. We do those 3 rounds really for a couple different reasons. One, it helps us spread out our labor and our workload. And also, probably most importantly, we don't take all of these liners from our propagation facility all at the same time, so it allows them to actually take cuttings off of the liners before they send them to us to start the next year's cycle. So it benefits our propagation facility and how they use their land, how they spread out their workload. And also they can time out basically their planting of plugs to Jumpstarts or direct stick cuttings to Jumpstarts to meet basically our needs and when we're going to take this in production. So moving into my samples I have here, this was actually a Jumpstart which we planted in week 28, which was not that long ago. We're recording this video, it's end of July, and we planted this not that long ago, and it was a green Jumpstart that came from our propagation facility here in Minnesota, and was just planted. This other example here was what we did essentially a month ago in June. And then I do not have a sample with me of what we planted in May, but it's very comparable to this, okay? So if we get basically a well-branched Jumpstart that we transplant into a 2-gallon container outside, all we are doing is essentially basically planting it, and then we are in maintenance mode for the rest of that season. If it has good branching like this, we will not prune this plant at all in its first growing season. We just basically let this plant do its own thing, and we nurture it with fertility and water throughout the growing season and give it enough space to basically grow and then develop buds along these lower stems. So then at the end of the season, as these plants go into dormancy, we will overwinter some plants outdoors. And we will basically cover them up and give them a lot of insulation so that they will stay at about 30 to 32 degrees throughout the winter dormant. And then we wake them up in the spring and then envision this plant to be about this big, and then we'll cut all of those stems back down to about 4 inches. and then we'll rely on basal buds and lower stem buds for the flowers that spring. So this plant that I'm holding that is right in front of me here was basically this plant a year ago. So this would have been from our week 28 planting last year, so our July planting last year. That here again, we just let it grow. In the first season, it went into dormancy, we overwintered it, and then we cut it back very hard, and then we had great shoots come from the base, and then the flower buds survived, and we have a beautiful flower show. That's a general process for what we do. We used to do a lot more cutting on this plant in season 1 to try to build body, and we are talking to many of our other customers or other growers and sharing that with them is that we're finding out that less is more. The less we do to this plant, if we get a good liner in the first season, the better it is for basically thick stem and bud development for the following year. So what we are finding out is essentially that less pruning in season 1 is really more beneficial for us for the flower display the following year coming out of dormancy. What we used to do is take this plant and we would cut it numerous times throughout the first year to get it lush, and it was very just a green, full foliage plant, but there was tons of stems, and those stems were really skinny. And essentially that following spring, we would cut it all off anyway and restart from the base. So, in just letting it grow, it forms basically, this fall, this plant will have very, very thick stems, and there won't be a lot of them, but there'll be enough, or there'll be very thick stems on the base. And then the buds along the bottom of those thick stems will basically be forming flower buds for the following spring. So the more energy that can be basically driven to those buds to create that flower and hold that flower to the following spring has been an improvement that we've seen in our production since we changed this method probably about 6 or 7 years ago. So thank you for your time, and thanks for watching today. It's really a pleasure for us to basically share information of what works for us in hopes that it'll work for you, and knowing and understanding that we're all not in the same area and same environment, and we have different challenges. So what may work for us may not work for you, but it's always good to share, because at the end of the day, your success equals our success. So thank you again for your time, and we'll see you next time on Growing What's Next.